Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Lakeside's third webinar in our series. I'm Jeff Moore, President and CEO of Lakeside. Today's webinar is Simplify Transportation Complexity and Focus on Your Competency. For those of you that have joined us in the past, in June we had a Drive Innovation through SmartSource Transportation Management webinar. In September, Build a Sustainable Business Through Better Transportation Management. And then today, we are continuing on with the third in our series. I'd like to just mention that at the end of the webinar, everyone is welcome to ask questions. You can do that one of two ways. Either you can reach us by clicking on the chat pin and typing in a question, which you will see on the right-hand side of your screen, or you can click on the audio pin, enter your access code, and we will then unmute you and ask you to ask your question at that moment. All of these webinars, of course, are available at www.lakesidebsmart.com. So this morning, I have a couple of my colleagues with me here today, Tom Coates, who's Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer, and Dan Carruthers, who's our Director of Strategic Business Development. Welcome, guys. Thank you. Thank you. So just for a couple of minutes, I want to just cover off who we are, for those of you that may not know much about Lakeside. We are a leading transportation management company. We're based out in the West End in Oakville. Been here for 26 years. And we have 60 employees here at this office in Oakville. We are a family-owned business, and we have developed a very collaborative and innovative culture here at Lakeside. And for those of you that have been here, you know what I mean, and I would encourage anybody listening to certainly give us a call and come out and see us, because we really are have a great culture at Lakeside. Now, you might not know us, but you may know a lot of our clients. Campbell Soup has been a customer of ours for over 26 years. Give and Go Prepared Foods, J&J, Oak Run Farm Bakery, Lakeshore, which is a very large and Canada's largest flour distribution company, and Xerox Canada. So today we're going to talk about the growing complexity in the food industry, and to start that out, I'm going to ask Dan Carruthers to cover that off for us. Dan?
Thanks, Jeff. Complexity in our supply chain, it comes from several things. One is our businesses grow, and they go from having one or two customers and just having to get transportation and our products out to the market to a lot of external things. So let's kind of talk about some of those. The first one is our business as it is. As we expand our customers and we get different suppliers and different types of customers, a lot of things impact our supply chain. It becomes more and more difficult to manage. It goes from using one or two carriers to a whole slew of carriers that have customers with all sorts of needs. So as our business grows, that complexity makes it more difficult to continue to react and keep ourselves aligned. From the external thing, we have lots of things happening. If you're in the food business, there's all sorts of stuff happening in terms of the regulations that take place. We have, in the case of food, many things we have to do at the border in terms of inspections. We have major trade agreements being changed, as Harper and Obama have announced lately. We have things like product recalls and record keeping and all of those things that need to be managed as part of doing business in the marketplace. The business is becoming more complex because our customers are often requiring us to conform to all sorts of different things in terms of delivery appointments, etc., and have all sorts of penalties for non-conformance. And the fact is, what's happening is our business has become more complex. There's more control is becoming a part of our business, not less. And I think everybody in Canada is very aware of what can happen in terms of external factors that impact their business. We just have to look at what's happening in Alberta with the XL food crisis. That drives a whole bunch of different things, from changing patterns of the way stuff happens, to legislation, to callbacks, to a very complex situation. Non-compliance is something that impacts us on a day-to-day basis. Not only are we getting very stiff guidelines on how we have to respond to our clients' needs, but they're often finding us or giving us non-conformance penalties. These kind of things can be dollar impacts, but they also can have significant things in terms of our reputation. How we deal with our customers in non-compliance can impact whether we're going to do business with them again. And as you can see with the bill that's coming through, S11, relative to safety of food products, the penalties are very significant. The proposed penalty on a business can go from $250,000 up to $5 million. So something that drives some complexity into how we have to manage our business. On the environmental side, transportation has a significant impact on our carbon footprint as a supplier into the marketplace. Companies such as Walmart and other large retailers are demanding that their suppliers have sustainable programs, monitor that kind of stuff, keep tabs on it. So it's an influence in terms of more controls and more restrictions that we have to deal with. In terms of just dealing with customers, on-time performance in the retail business, as you will know if you're in the food business, drives compliance to meeting all the appointments, and all of the work around just managing the paperwork and the flow of stuff that goes there. So as you can see, the complexity of the business is getting more detailed. Our need for better controls is becoming more and more important. And at the end of the day, complexity drives resources into our business, either in the terms of more people just to be able to do all of this, better systems to be able to capture the information and be able to manage it, higher levels of control in order to keep us in compliance and meet all the guidelines, whether they're business with our customer or with the external regulations. What this is doing is driving higher costs into the business because these resources all cost money. So these are things that we need to be able to deal with and manage. Industry today is dealing with its need to be very competitive. Competitive means it needs to be able to manage costs, take costs out. It needs to be able to address things like packaging and green initiatives and increasing customer demand. We need always to be having a higher and higher focus on the efficiency within our supply chain. How do we take costs out? How do we drive improvement? And all of that drives innovation. And innovation, again, doesn't come from having just one or two people involved with the business. It's very intensive. It requires expertise. It requires a higher level of skill. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tom to talk about transportation management.
Yeah, just to touch on a couple of things there, Dan. It really is key to stress the fact that with complexity in an organization that is brought on by all of these outside forces in a company, it really does drive a lot of cost into the organization. And people, it takes a lot more people. Systems investment is very, very large on the transportation side, and of course, with more people and systems comes a very high level of process that needs to be built in. So, what can food companies do to keep up? Tom Coates, who's our COO. Tom, can you take us through that?
Okay, thanks, Jeff. What companies need to do today is they need to be focused on so many different aspects of the business, and that does include transportation. As you can see, there's product, service development, technology, marketing, and sales, and very often transportation and distribution is not highly discussed, and in many companies, transportation management is not the topic being discussed at the C level or at the executive level. So the core challenge is to be able to realize that companies are working at their core business, which is the consumable product. That's the success side of the business, and understanding that transportation is not a core activity or competency, and that way, when you do realize that, you can start to compete. And it's important to know that 80% of Fortune 500 companies outsource at least one function in their supply chain management. Now, as you see this slide here, we're looking at a typical transportation department, and you'll see tactical and strategic aspects of what should happen within the transportation organization. The companies typically spend some time on the compliance process and operations, and they do spend most of the time in that tactical area. More time is required in the information, design, and procurement side to remove costs, increase profit, and create the most efficient transportation department possible.
Thanks, Tom. So, what do you do about this? And in our particular situation, we are a partner to many companies to deal with complexity and to help companies grow their businesses so that they can focus on their core competencies. Dan, I'd like to ask you to cover off our SmartSourcing business model and take it from there.
Thanks, Jeff. Our philosophy is what we call SmartSourcing, and it's more than just taking the lift and shift approach to outsourcing, where somebody else just does exactly what you're doing. What our approach is to really try to leverage across all the functions within our partners and ourselves to drive cost across the business process, not just out of the transportation. We're not just focusing on the cost of the truck, but in terms of what it is that drives cost into the transportation from sales right through to the end of the process. And smart sourcing is really the key behind innovation. Smart sourcing says we need to keep the end in mind and be innovative around how we get there. So if you look at the next drawing here, you see kind of depicting the transportation department providing information back into a whole series of functions within the company that are where there's some core competencies already existing, and trying to leverage the knowledge that we can gain and the information we have across all of these to drive cost out of the total process. Yes, we have to deliver the product from plant to the customer, but how we do it and the decisions that are made throughout that whole process, whether it's in customer service, production, how we inventory, how we look at the activity-based costing, through that whole process to do the right things is where we go. So the backbone of smart sourcing is really having expertise in the transportation area, having good focus on information management, driving innovation in terms of looking at what's happening and trying to determine what happens, looking at the added values of reducing costs across the whole supply chain network, looking at managing risk, increasing visibility to all the participants so that we can all work towards a better result, and enhancing control. And ultimately what you're trying to do is take control and not treat it as a cost center, but drive profit back into the organization by helping to improve the business. That improvement can be just taking some cost out of other sources or through helping change the way that we go to market. Now, some of the innovative things that we do in Lakeside is when we're trying to manage transportation is one of the things that you have to do it in the most optimum way. And what we've done is develop what we call the SMART score. The SMART score is really looking at how the transportation moves. Are we moving it in the most efficient way? Are we maximizing the capacity? And then measuring everything against that. This SMART score also helps us identify where we're using transportation ineffectively, which drives our sustainability or carbon footprint outside of what we would want for an ideal situation. But we use these kinds of tools in order to drive innovation back into the process. We have the people, the resources to be able to pull these together So it's more than just moving the transportation. So these are just some of the examples of things that we have to do and how we try to leverage and help our customers.
Great, thanks, Dan. So how you accomplish this is really, at the end of the day, is choosing the right partner. At Lakeside, we are a very, very strong partner to our customers, and we offer a very, very unique way of managing the complexities within the supply chain through our SmartSourcing program. You know, we do have a proven transportation track record. We are experts in the field, a very proactive culture, and again, I encourage everyone to come and visit and experience our culture at Lakeside. We have, since 2007, a very sustainable initiative that we have built through our Vision Green program here, and we're working very, very closely with customers to measure their carbon footprint so that they can be a better supplier to their customers. We guarantee our results. I think that's very, very key. Nobody goes into a SmartSourcing program not knowing what they are going to get out at the end. And I can't say enough about how capable we are from a metric standpoint. And we are delivering metrics typically in real time so that clients can make decisions at a moment's notice and understand what is going on with this business, which is not typical in an in-source environment for a customer. So to conclude, operational complexity and industry pressures are increasing across the board, and I don't think anybody could deny that in any business, whether it's the food business or any other business. Food companies really do need to focus on core competency. With all the complexity that's going on in the industry, transportation is one part of an organization that really can be enhanced, and a much better job can be done through a focusing on the business with a strong partner. So the answer is SmartSourcing. Our ideal transportation model is very innovative, and we encourage anybody to learn more about it through phoning us or going on lakesideesmart.com to learn more. And we work with partners who are continually innovating to improve transportation management and measure the results for the best success. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody, and I think we're pretty much on time, which is great. Anybody that has a question, again, probably the easiest way is to go to the chat pin and type in a question, or click on the audio pin, enter your access code, and ask a question verbally. I'm going to start. I do have one question so far that has come in. How long does it take to implement a typical SmartSource program, and what are the typical savings that can be realized? Great questions. The length really depends on the size and complexity of the business. But, typically we are seeing no more than 90 days from start to finish in an implementation. And I would consider that being, fairly complex, which most of them are, implementations or businesses. But we are seeing 30 to 45 in some of the less complex programs. From a savings standpoint, again, it really matters on the business, but if I'm going to throw a number out there, I would say anywhere from 8 to 12% savings, and that is ongoing year after year. And the business is benchmarked before we start any SmartSource program. So there is a metric that is able to measure the actual savings right out of the gate from day one. Oh, okay, here's another one. Does smart sourcing reduce headcount in an organization? Interesting question. Absolutely it does. In every single Smart Source program that we have implemented, part of the savings calculation is definitely based on reduced headcount, you know, as well as several other functions across the organization. But, you know, typically what we're doing is replacing full-time equivalents within an organization with people from our organization and bringing a much higher level of expertise to the transportation program. Okay, here's another one. Can you explain the strategic functions you mentioned as part of the ideal transportation department? Tom, you want to again?
Yeah. Go to the whole picture. On the tactical side, that's just the physical planning a truck, moving a truck, booking the plane, and making sure it all happens. On the strategic side, you're really getting into benchmarking and looking at how the decisions are taking place. So a good example is providing activity-based costing back to the sales organization or to some other function so they can make better decisions about how you're accepting the freight or the business from a particular client, and looking at where the business is successful or where it's dragging down margins. Looking at new opportunities when a new customer is offering an opportunity and drive new business, new supply into you. Looking at what it would cost, how are you going to service it, looking at the options. In design, as your complexity of business gets higher, the need to look at where you're sourcing, where you're going to put warehouses, if that's what you're making the decision on, or how you're going to treat with customers. That's all part of looking forward. Same with procurement as you move from one mode of transportation to another. All of those drive changes in how you're doing business, and they need to be well thought through because they all have a cost input. So when you're looking at the strategic side, you're really looking at how to feed information back to all the other functions in the company that have an impact on the transportation at the end of the day.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Well, that looks like that looks like the end of our webinar. There's no other questions that have been asked. So again, we'd like to thank everybody for joining. We had a great attendance this morning. And I'd like to thank my colleagues, Dan and Tom, for being here. And you can see this webinar, I would say starting probably tomorrow at lakeside.smart.com. So everybody have a great day, and thanks again for joining.